Well, a plan for a high-tech, intranet-connected neighborhood in Toronto has hit a major snag, and Cavoukian, a high-profile advisor and former Ontario Privacy Commissioner, is resigning because she says her concerns are not being addressed. Now, Sidewalk Labs, a Google sister company, and Waterfront Toronto have submitted a proposal for a 12-acre community on the city's waterfront. The plan calls for the installation of data-gathering sensors such as pedestrian counters. Cavoukian fears residents' privacy might be compromised. Well, joining us now is Anne Cavoukian herself. Anne, thank you for joining us today to talk about resignation. We touched upon it in the introduction, but in your own words, why did you decide to resign?
I was hired by Sidewalk Labs to embed privacy by design into all of the smart city operations. I developed privacy by design years ago. It's a framework of proactively embedding much needed privacy protective measures into the design of the smart city. Now, normally that would involve obtaining the positive consent of the residents of the city. But we know that's not possible here because the data will be collected automatically by sensors and other technologies. So the opportunity for consent doesn't exist. So what do we do about that? My comment was, you must de-identify all the personally identifiable information at source, meaning at the time it's collected by the sensor, you de-identify it right then and there using very strong de-identification protocols that will resist re-identification attacks. That's essential. And Sidewalk Labs has committed to that. But recently, on Thursday at the meeting, they indicated to Waterfront Toronto that they want to create this new civic data trust, which is great. A number of bodies will participate and make decisions relating to the use of the data, but that they could only encourage the de-identification of data, not make it mandatory. And when I heard that, that's when I knew I had to resign.
So let me jump in there, Anne. Let me jump in there just to get a clarification then. Here we have a new neighborhood that will be designed. It will be collecting data because it's meant to be a smart city. People already have privacy concerns every time they go onto a website because it collects cookies. So in this scenario, they would collect data but not necessarily depersonalized, and therefore personal information would be widely shared?
It could be. And that's the problem. And look, I get it. I understand that there's a treasure trove of personally identifiable information that could be used by the various organizations, companies involved, and this will have great value. But that cannot take place because you have to, the only way to address this issue to ensure privacy, which I must do, is to de-identify it at source at the time of collection. And so what I'm hoping my resignation will do is get Waterfront Toronto to insist upon all de-identification of data at source. Sidewalk Labs has already committed to that in terms of what they collect, but they said we can't insist upon third parties and other organizations working with Waterfront Toronto to de-identify. And I'm saying not good enough. Waterfront, Quayside Waterfront Toronto, you must insist on the de-identification of the data because that will have the greatest value, not only in terms of protecting privacy, but it will also protect Waterfront Toronto and Sidewalk Labs from massive data breaches of personally identifiable data. This is happening on a daily basis.
Well, let me jump in there. You say daily basis, and I think of a time when, for example, if you want to research something, you went to a library, nobody would know your research history. You would go shopping, no one would have your shopping history, but now, because we are so reliant on the internet, those things are trackable. And here you have Sidewalk Labs, an experiment that's supposed to set a precedent for future cities. How concerned should other Canadians and other parts of the country be about data collection as we keep creating smarter buildings and smarter communities?
Michael, if we do this right in Toronto and de-identify all personally identifiable data at source, they don't have to worry about the privacy-related aspects of this amazing smart city and the emerging technologies. That's why we have to de-identify the data at source. It will not only protect privacy, it will protect the corporations, the organizations, Waterfront Toronto, Sidewalk Labs, from massive data breaches. You've heard recently, obviously, about the Facebook data breaches and Google just last week. You can't say, oh, trust us, we're going to protect the data. No, you can't trust that. But by de-identifying the data at source, you not only protect privacy, you also protect organizations from massive data breaches. So it's truly a win-win.